Is the Premier League going to scrap VAR? That is the question that is going to be answered in just a couple of weeks' time in a crazy twist that nobody saw coming. Wolves have officially submitted a letter to the Premier League with a load of points as to why they think VAR should be removed from the start of next season. So let's go through each of their points and see whether they do actually hold any merit, whether I agree, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section down below, as this is obviously gargantuan as a decision for the Premier League. So yesterday, Wolves formally submitted a resolution to the Premier League to trigger a vote at the league's AGM in June, which I believe is held on June 6th, on the removal of VAR from the start of next season. As they say, the introduction of VAR in the 1920 season was a decision made in good faith and with the best interests of football and the Premier League at its heart. And I think we can all agree with that one. VAR as a concept is fantastic. If the officials miss something on the pitch, then you would love to give them an extra opportunity to review their decision and get some assistance from other officials to potentially overturn an incorrect mistake that they made. But as Wolves say, however, it has led to numerous unintended negative consequences that are damaging the relationship between fans and football and undermining the value of the Premier League brand, which include the following. Now, before we get into those, I do agree. Fans are crazy about VAR. They slate it all of the time. However, I feel like it's mainly for its use in the Premier League. And so this is where it comes down to the question of, is VAR the problem, or are the people using it and the people whose job it is to officiate via VAR the problem in the Premier League? We saw VAR be basically flawless in the World Cup, where you have the highest level of officials from around the world. VAR was not the conversation after basically every single game, whereas in the Premier League it seems to be. This can also be said to be the case in the Champions League. Now, there are questions about the handball rules in the Champions League, but they are applied very consistently. We've seen over the years numerous interpretations of rules by officials in the Premier League that are vastly different from one official to another, and the referees just don't seem to have that consistency. That is a major problem. And the other major problem is the fact that you can see it used so well elsewhere in the world, but these are supposed to be the best officials, the best league in the world. It just isn't working properly. So let's go through each of Wolves' points and see whether I agree with them and whether they hold some merit. Also, very quickly, I apologise for my voice. I am ill. Their first point is that VAR has an impact on goal celebrations and the spontaneous passion that makes football special. I think this is one of the biggest arguments in their favour that the majority of fans agree with, especially match-going fans. Because of the way that VAR works and the fact that a lot of the time after a goal is scored, if there was an incident, then it will take 3 minutes or so in order for this to be overturned. So if you score a last minute winner and there's limbs in the crowd, everyone's going crazy. And then it's, oh no, stop that right there. VAR, we've got to check this one. It can take away from that heat of the moment. However, I feel like I'm in the minority that slightly disagree. If you score a goal and you get your initial celebration with the players, with the fans and everything like that, and then they VAR check it, if they do give the goal after another couple of minutes, then you do celebrate again. And it's like a second celebration. But I would also argue that one of the most satisfying things that there is in football, I experienced when we, Leicester, won the FA Cup. When Ben Chilwell thought that he had equalised in one of the last minutes of the game, and it was then VAR checked and deemed to be offside. I can guarantee you that our fans definitely celebrated when that VAR decision was announced. And so you get a slightly different form of celebration, which I think people don't really seem to appreciate when they're talking about this kind of thing. However, their next point is frustration and confusion inside stadiums due to lengthy VAR checks and poor communication. This is undeniable. From someone that has had multiple seasons with VAR and now a season without VAR in the Championship, I can tell you that having those instances where you're sat literally just waiting for 3 or 4 minutes not really knowing what's going on is so infuriating. At least if you're watching it on TV, they're showing replays and they're showing the incidents that are being checked. They're showing you freeze frames of potential offsides or whether a player was fouled or a handball or something. If you're in the stadium, you don't get any of that. You get a screen that says checking for offside, checking possible penalty. And that's it. In other sports, you get the replays. You get the referees and the officials communicating to the crowd what is being checked and what has been given as a result of it. I think this is one thing that definitely needs to change, and the Premier League have stated that they want to do this going further forward. Howard Webb has talked about this as part of the PGMOL, that they want to announce things to fans, and we've seen that trialled. I think it was in the Women's World Cup where we saw cases of this where they told everyone what was being given. I think it should be a fully transparent thing. Whether we would be able to hear the audio at this point in time, it seems like that isn't going to be the case, but I don't see why in the stadium on the big screens you are not able to see what everyone else sees at home. Show us the process that you're going through. Show us the decision after it's been made, definitely, for what has been given as a penalty or an offside or something like that. Next up, we have a point that I think is really poor. This one says, a more hostile atmosphere with protests, booing of the Premier League anthem, and chants against VAR. Honestly, not really sure what the protest is referencing. The booing of the Premier League anthem would happen anyway, because some people, for example, Forest and Everton, think that it's corrupt against them because they've been docked points. That's always going to happen. It happens in the Champions League as well. But I think the point of chants against VAR is pointless, because if people weren't chanting about VAR, they'd be chanting about the referee or the linesman. You don't know what you're doing after a goal was given that was clearly offside, but for some reason the linesman missed it. These things have happened in football forever and will continue to happen. It's just the target of the chant has changed from being the referee to the video assistant referee. So I don't think that really matters. The next point is that VAR is an overreach of VAR's original purpose to correct clear and obvious mistakes, now overanalyzing subjective decisions and compromising the game's fluidity and integrity. I think this is fair. There are multiple instances where it is genuinely not clear whether something is the wrong decision or not, and yet it will get overturned when there isn't definitive evidence that that should happen. But then you'll have the exact same decision the next week that won't get overturned because of the inconsistencies between officials, rules, etc. That is a big problem, and does affect the game's fluidity when you're having to stop-start with these checks for everything. I also personally believe that this is the reason why some players have had more injuries than before, because you have the build-up of like lactic acid and stuff. If you're having all this stop-start, players should actually probably jog around whilst VAR checks are happening to prevent this kind of thing. Next, we have a definitely correct point. Diminished accountability of on-field officials due to the safety net of VAR, leading to an erosion of authority on the pitch. Absolutely bang on. A referee can give a decision like a penalty and know that their mates in the VAR booth can basically overturn it if they've made a stinker. Or the opposite, if they completely miss something, like when Declan Rice booted a player the other week and didn't give it, then the VAR can overturn it and give the decision. You don't then see referees punished because they made incorrect decisions that were overturned. There is no accountability of them making mistakes, because instead they'll want to praise the fact that VAR came in and saved the day. Next, we have continued errors despite VAR, with supporters unable to accept human error after multiple views and replays, damaging confidence in officiating standards. This is the biggest thing, right? I feel like VAR, in the Premier League specifically, has basically magnified the incompetence of the officials. The level of officiating in the biggest and best league in the world is not good enough. You've seen in the World Cup, Champions League, etc., VAR is used much better and with more consistency. In the Premier League, you don't see that. As I previously said, one week, something will be a penalty. The next week, the exact same thing will not be a penalty. That is a problem. And you need to improve your consistency and standards. Now, I know that the referees and the PGMOL and the Premier League say the accuracy has gone from 82% to 96% for big decisions. Okay, but that doesn't account for the consistency issues. Because you can say that a decision was correct to suit your argument, but it's still subjective. And if 99% of people don't think it was correct, then you can't hide behind that number. So I do agree with that one. I think everybody does. Next, we have disruption of the Premier League's fast pace with lengthy VAR checks and more added time, causing matches to run excessively long. I think these are two different points. The lengthy VAR checks we've been over, but more added time because of VAR checks is always going to happen. But the reason why matches are running longer is because they're punishing people more for time wasting and stuff like that. We know that. They told us about that ahead of the season just gone. And going forward, they're apparently going to clamp down on like goalkeeper time wasting. You're not going to be able to hold the ball for 30 seconds anymore. I really, really hope that that happens, and that should also give us less added time. Next up, again, I think that this is a bit of a meh one. Constant discourse about VAR decisions often overshadowing the match itself and tarnishing the reputation of the league. I don't see the point in this point because, again, it's exactly the same without VAR. You would still be questioning the, maybe not the integrity, but you would be questioning the consistency and level of officiating if they make massive mistakes that can't be fixed with VAR. As much as a lot of people hate VAR, if the number of correct decisions is higher, it's obviously much higher as you go up a graph to go up that last percentile. So to be able to jump up by nearly 15% is actually huge. And whilst there are discussions about VAR, that's mainly because no one ever praises it when they do overturn things correctly. And the amount, people seem to forget the amount of conversations that would have happened down the pub after a game where everybody knows that a penalty was given that was not a penalty. Maybe it was outside the box. Maybe it just wasn't a foul. He got the ball. Everyone would be discussing it. And then I don't really understand this last point. They say erosion of trust and reputation with VAR fueling completely nonsensical allegations of corruption. If you think that they are nonsensical, why are you putting it as a point to remove VAR? That doesn't make any sense. That's basically saying, oh yeah, all of these children on Twitter say that VAR is corrupt, therefore we should get rid of it. I think that one is quite silly. And then after that, they say the decision to table the resolution has come after careful consideration and with the utmost respect for the Prem, PGMOL, and our fellow competitors. There is no blame to be placed. We're all just looking for the best possible outcome for football, and all stakeholders have been working hard to try and make the introduction of additional technology a success. However, after 5 seasons of VAR in the Prem, it's time for a constructive and critical debate on its future. Our position is that the price we are paying for a small increase in accuracy is at odds with the spirit of the game, and as a result, we should remove it from the 24-25 season onwards. So a huge statement from Wolves. Some of their points, as we've just gone through, I agree with. Others, not so much. I also believe that the big change coming in next season, the semi-automated offsides, are going to make a couple of these points not completely null and void, but certainly diminish them. An offside check that might currently take 5 minutes will take 1 with semi-automated offsides. That is a massive improvement. And from what we're hearing from Sky and all of these other journalists and reporters, it doesn't seem like this is going to get passed. 14 of the 20 clubs would have to agree with Wolves at this AGM meeting in June in order to scrap VAR, and it doesn't seem like that is going to happen. Clubs instead would like to see definite and constructive improvement and tweaks to the system, such as automated or semi-automated offsides. I personally think the concept of VAR is great. The execution, due to the officials that we have in the Premier League, is simply not good enough and needs improvement. Through the use of things like semi-automated offsides, that's going to be massive and really, really help out. But I think one thing that needs to be looked at is the definition of some rules. For example, handball. It needs to be clear as day. This is handball, this is not handball. And therefore, you don't get these subjective decisions because it is simple as, okay, does that tick the things in the rulebook? Yes. Okay, it's a penalty, it's a red card, whatever. And I think more clear and concise rulings will help the officials as well. So let me know your thoughts on Wolves' statement. Do you agree with their points? Do you disagree with them? What do you think to my thoughts on it? Are yours completely different? I'm really, really intrigued to hear. And make sure you subscribe if you're new, if you want to see loads more new videos.